What up everyone, I'm back, we made it. I gave birth to little baby Jax. It's been exactly 12 days ago right now. I didn't film earlier because it was just really not possible, I would say, because I was just trying to get into a rhythm and, just enjoy Jax for a little bit. But yeah, here I am. I want to tell you guys my birth story, and I also want to show you an update because my last video was as real as it gets. This one is gonna be just as real because I'm going to show you guys my body right now. I'll insert here a couple of pictures where you see my postpartum body with 2, 4, and 6 days, I believe. This is what it is right now. So you can compare it to the other days. The belly is shrinking a lot, so I'm really happy with that. My uterus is also going back into the right position. But the scars are pretty real. As you can see, there's a lot of tiny stretch marks. So I'm just taking care of it as much as I can with a lot of like the right oils. But yeah, there's not a lot, you can do, I guess, at this point because everything is still getting back in shape. But as soon as my body's back adjusted, we'll see what we can do with maybe some other creams or treatments, whatever. So yeah, this is how it kind of looks in pants. So just still a little bump, but I'm just wearing loose clothes. Not that I'm ashamed of a little bump or whatever, but it's just comfortable. And I do like the pants to be a little bit tight. Baby Jax is doing really good. He already made his birth weight at day 8, so that's really great as well. For the people that don't know what that means, whenever they are born, he was born at 4 kilograms, but then the first couple of days they lose weight. So he lost about 260 grams, and then they measure how long it takes for him to get back on the birth weight at 4 kilos. So that was 8 days. That's really good when you only breastfeed, so I'm super happy with that. And now my next appointment is tomorrow, so he hasn't been weighed for about a week. So I'm really curious how he's doing right now, because it's so difficult when you see him every day to see if he actually grew or, I mean, he's eating really well because I kind of spoiled him. Every time he would make like a little peep, I would just grab him and I was like, oh, he needs to feed. So I made it more difficult for myself because before he was feeding every 3 hours, maybe 3.5. And now he's feeding every 2 hours. So during the day it's a mess, but also during night. So I started to pump my breast. So, and Cuz is now able to give the milk. And for me it's also just better because my nipples hurt like hell. Nobody told you that your nipples will hurt like hell, but it's really painful. So let me take you guys through the birth story. It started at 2:30 in the morning. And I woke up, had these bad cramps. I honestly noticed I went to the restroom for like 4 times before I went to bed. So I was like, it looks like my intestines are clearing themselves out for something that's coming. So I know, too much information. But I was already kind of like, cautious. I was like, well, it might happen tonight. So I went to bed, 2:30. I woke up with these cramps and there was 5 or 6 minutes in between. So I knew I didn't have to call, but I still called. I was like, hey, just letting you know, every 5 to 6 minutes. So just so you guys know, it might, start happening in a couple of hours. So I didn't sleep all night because it's like comparable to really bad period cramps, but then it comes, it gets really intense and then it slows down again. And then you think you're done. And then 5 minutes later it comes again. So you just can't sleep. So I tried to go back to bed, but it didn't really work. So I just stayed up. And next morning, I think around, I get distracted. I hear Jax crying, but I know because it's got him. Let it go, Sandra, let it go. But the next morning, we went downstairs. So this is the funny part. We went downstairs and I sit on the couch and all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? We should probably put like a garbage bag or something below me because if my water breaks, we're fucked. I ruined the whole couch. So he's like, oh yeah, let's do it. And I was sitting with my like feet tucked under my bum And literally a minute later, I feel water against my foot. And I'm like, grab me, grab me, grab me, because you can't really stand up really quickly when you're, you know, super pregnant. So he just stands up and grabs me at my hands, and I walk away from the carpet that we have, and literally my water breaks and it just flows out. It was only like, I think 100 milliliters or something, but I was like, holy shit, I just said something about it and now it's happening.
Okay, it seems that her water broke. You can't really see it, but it's down here on the floor. So how's your night been?
Been up since 3 a.m. Oh, wait, there's no...
Well,
So I called my midwife again. I'm like, okay, my water broke, and but there's still like more than 4 minutes in between my contractions. So she's like, okay, well, we'll come check the water and see how far you're dilated, whatever. So she checked, it was only 2 centimeters. And right before she left, I lost some water again. And this time it was a little bit yellowish. So she was like worried that it maybe had like the baby's poo in it, like the meconium. So she's like, okay, we should probably go to the hospital right now.
lijkt alsof je echt een basketbal onder je shirt hebt zitten gewoon.
So I went to the hospital, they checked, everything was alright, and then they told me, so here comes the part where I got so upset. They told me, okay, you are at 4 centimeters right now. What we can do is you can stay here if you would like, but then we cannot give you any pain medication because there is nobody present right now. We're understaffed that can give you the pain medication. Or you go back home, you sit there, wait till you're 8 centimeters, then you have to drive to Amsterdam, what is about 20 to 30 minutes from here, to go to that hospital to give birth there. So I got so upset. I was like, are you kidding me? How in the world can I already decide right now that maybe it gets hella tough? And now you're asking me to decide right now, when it's already pretty painful, if I'm going to stay here, I can't have pain medication. I didn't want to go back in the car, sit at home, wait for 8 centimeters, because nobody's going to stay with you. You have to call like the midwife again and again and again, and they have to come back and check until you're finally 8 or 9 centimeters. So I was just not seeing that happen, you know. So he said, okay, so then your midwife is going to come here and she's going to deliver your baby because we're understaffed, whatever. So in my mind, I was like, okay, what if things go wrong? You know, like what? I'm in a hospital, right? How the hell is it possible that at the moment stuff is going to happen, you guys can't give me pain medication or whatever? But I was like, okay, we're going to have to decide right now. Okay, I'll do it without pain medication. I'm going to stay here. So we stayed there. The midwife again left. She's like, okay, I'm gonna come back in 3 hours because it's like 1 centimeter dilation per hour. So you should be around 7 or 6 or 7 when I get back. So 2 hours later, I was like, this is gonna happen. I felt like the push contractions, like the contractions that they really switched up. Like first they were easy to breathe out, and now they started to get really complicated, and there was definitely less than a minute or 2 in between. So I called her, I'm like, okay, you gotta come because I think we're here. So she came and she told me I was 9 centimeters and we're gonna have to start pushing in a minute. So this started. I finally was able to push, and it was the best feeling ever because I was having so much pain during all these centimeters. At some point I went twice under the shower there, and like a really hot shower. Cos was just standing next to me and he just did the shower over my back and over the lower part of my belly, and I was just like wobbling around, didn't know what to do with the pain, and I was just breathing everything away. But I did realize, like, holy shit, I'm gonna have to do this without painkilling, and that's pretty damn hard. But okay, we're gonna do this. And she's like, okay, we can start pushing. And I did the first push. I was like, this is the best feeling in the world. Like, my body is telling me to push, and now I can finally push instead of like breathing it away. So it felt so good. And then after 3 pushes, she told me to stop because she saw that the baby's heart rate was slowing down every time I pushed. So that meant something was wrong, you know, like every push gave him stress or whatever, and they needed to figure out what it was. It took 1.5 to 2 hours of push contractions that I had to breathe away because they were doing so many research and little things to find out what was wrong with him. And it was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. I can promise you that much. Like, holy shit, it was hard. I needed to breathe all these things away while they were doing all this research down there. So the first thing they did is they went with a little thing on his head. So they had to insert this thing into my vagina to open it up while I was having these contractions to push something out. And something was going in. It was like so unnatural, you know, my whole body was like, get it out. And I needed to do everything in my power to keep it in and not letting those push contractions continue. Like I had to breathe them away. So I was like, just, I think in like some kind of trance to just keep myself there and focus on not pushing him out, not pushing him out, and telling myself, literally chanting to myself in my head, like, you can do this, you got this, you got this, you are gonna do it. You got this. You can't push. You're in control of your body. Your body's not in control. They just didn't understand why he wasn't coming out and why every time I pushed, his heart rate went down. Finally, they said whenever they had the okay of the blood test, and they were like, he is really healthy, so there shouldn't be a problem. So we're gonna have to bring him on this earth with the pump that they put on his head. I'm not sure what it's called. Here it's called a vacuum pump. But they put a pump on his head and they pull him while you push. So the first thing whenever she was starting to say it, I was like, yes, yes, do it. Because I know the risk, like there's no risk, like he just have a little point on his head and that would fade away in a couple of days. So she didn't even finish her sentence and I was like, yeah, let's go. Because I was sitting there 1.5 hours with these contractions that I had to breathe away. And in the most intense pain I've ever been in. So she literally put it on his head and I had, because every contraction is like 3 pushes. It gives you 3 options to push. And I had 1 contraction, I had 3 options to push, and I had the second contraction. And with the first push, he was out. So he didn't have a point on his head at all. And that's because they told me I was pushing so well that I still did all the work. So, that's why he didn't have the point on his head. But what now finally happened is he was strangling himself with my umbilical cord. It was wrapped around his head twice. And he had his hand over his head. And one time his hand was wrapped in it. So the umbilical cord was pulling him back and was causing that whenever he was coming out, he was choked. But he made it, and it was the best feeling ever when he finally came out. Like when I could finally push and I felt the head come out, and then it's still painful. Like they did have to snip me, so I do have 4 stitches down there, 1 really big one and 3 internal ones. But oh my god, when he was finally out, I was like, holy shit, yes, here he is. Like was it worth all the pain? I don't know, maybe I would have chosen painkillers when I would be in a different hospital, probably, but yeah, he made it out healthy. Like the umbilical cord was like removed straight away. He didn't turn purple or blue at all because they handled so quickly. So that's my birth story. I am going, before I upload this video, by the way, I'm going to say everybody, or tell everybody on my IG that if you didn't give birth yet, you should probably not watch this video because you don't want to go into a birth having a negative thought, you know? Because I went into this birth like everything's going to be fine. Like I'm going to do it without painkillers. Like I got this, but I didn't. And that wasn't my fault. That was just nature, you know, wrapping the umbilical cord around my little boy's head. So, yeah, finally, I mean, it was a natural birth, you know, as in like we didn't have a C-section. There was no pain meds involved, whatever, just the pump eventually. So I'm still very happy that it went like that and that I didn't have to have a C-section, because that would have been a step. If the blood test turned out like he wasn't healthy, that would have been the next step. So now it's time to show you guys little Jax. I heard him crying before. I don't know why he stopped. Maybe daddy picked him up Or maybe he just went back to sleep. So let's see. Oh, he went back to sleep. Yes, we still love you. We still love you too. Yes. Yes. But we came for Jacksie. Yeah. Hey, Daddy.
Well, guys, I'm addicted to Apex. So.
Yeah, but that's my fault because I wasn't able to do shit the last couple of weeks.
So I adjusted.
Yeah, you adjusted really well. Look, here he is. My little baby boy. Hey, baby boy. The cuteness is overwhelming. How are you dealing with being a daddy?
Oh, it's so amazing. I just warmed up his milk, by the way. So.
You gonna feed him?
Yeah. Because he was crying.
I heard that.
I don't need your titties anymore to feed him.
I just told them about it, that I started to use a breast pump.
Okay, help me.
Go.
You have to time it right. So right before he starts crying,
You have
have your
to,
milk prepared.
yeah, you have to recognize the little suction, and then he starts to suck on his hands and whatever. Exactly. So, well, guys, I guess this is it for now. And see you guys later.